there has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch Michael by there.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Folks, there's breaking news in regards to the Long Island serial killer case. Now, all information right now, of course, is preliminary, and there's very little information out right now except the fact that a large police presence was outside of First Avenue in Massapequa this morning at 0600 hours, 6 a.m. In regards to this case, it was reported by News 12 Long Island. And again, someone has been taken into custody, but more information than that, this case is unfolding and very little information has come out. I'm going to play what News 12 reported earlier on today. And it's breaking all over. However, the information is sparse at this point.
Now on a Friday morning, and we are now 53 minutes into breaking you the news this morning that News 12 has learned through multiple sources that police have someone in custody in connection to the Gilgo Beach killings investigation. We're the very first ones to report this, again, live at 6 o'clock this morning. And we have this scene. This is live right now. This is in Massapequa Park, where there was a large police presence with multiple command units. Suffolk County Police is on scene there. State Police is on scene there. Nassau County Police on scene there this morning. And again, we have learned through sources that this has to do with someone in custody in connection with the Gilgo Beach killings investigation. The first of 10 bodies found along Ocean Parkway back on December 11th, 2010, nearly 13 years ago. But let's head right to that scene because we have crews there. We head to Jen Seelig now. She has the latest from Massapequa Park.
Yeah, Aaron, we have been here throughout the morning, and I can tell you the only thing that has changed is seeing more police and law enforcement coming here to the scene. You can see the road is still blocked off here. It's just a portion of First Ave here in Massapequa Park. We see state police, we see Suffolk police, and of course Nassau police here as well. But we only see the Suffolk command post and the state police command post. And in front of those vehicles, we also see investigators and detectives there as well. But again, still a very active scene here. We've been speaking with neighbors. Everybody shocked to learn that there is a huge investigation here underway. As you said, that sources do tell us now that police do have a person in custody related to the Gilgo Beach murder. So we did speak with the neighbor, hear what he had to say. Well, he did tell us before, we couldn't get that on air right away, but he said that he was shocked to see the police presence here. He says this is normally a quiet neighborhood. He's been living here for 30 years, has never seen anything like this. So shocked to see this huge law enforcement police presence here. But again, you can see the road blocked off. Police from different agencies here working together as well. And we're going to continue speaking with neighbors to learn what they have to say about this. And of course, bring you the latest information. Once we learn more, we will bring it on air and online at news12.com. Aaron?
So, folks, this case goes back all the way to 2010. And I believe all of the bodies were found in Suffolk County. Let me take that back. I believe there was some remains found in Nassau County. But this is a very, very complex case. There's no way people can minimize this and pretend that this case is anything other than a very, very complex case. And it involved a lot of sex workers. And there's been so many different conspiracy theories, allegations that the police were not doing their job correctly. I'm going to put on screens some of the pictures of the victims, and a couple of them were just artist sketches of it because they didn't have the full pictures of all the decedents, or they were too decomposed for them to get an accurate picture of their face. According to the New York Post, a suspected serial killer has been arrested over the notorious Gilgo Beach murders on Long Island. The suspect, who is yet to be identified, is due in court in hours, according to a source close to the investigation. So we're already receiving that little pseudonym, source close to the investigation, because the police obviously are not ready to release anything that could change. All of these cases, when they first break, there's a lot of information and misinformation. So I believe the police, they want to get this right, and they don't want to put anything out prematurely. The suspect is being looked at over the so-called Gilgo 4 women found wrapped in burlap within days of each from the late 2010, and not the other 6 who were later eyed as possibly being connected, the source said. Multiple sources first confirmed the arrest to News 12 Long Island, which said the First Avenue in Massapequa Park was just flooded with police. State and Suffolk County police, both at the scene since the early hours, did not officially confirm the arrest on Friday. News 12 did not identify the suspect or detail that led to the arrest, reportedly breakthrough in what is called one of the most intense, prolific searches for a serial killer ever. Fears of a serial killer emerged when the body of Melissa Bartolome, she was 24 years old at the time, was found along Ocean Parkway on December 11th, 2010. So this is going back nearly 13 years ago, with the remains of 3 other women then found in the following days. The so-called Gilgo 4, Bartolome, along with Megan Waterman, 22, Amber Lynn Costello, 27, and Maureen Brainerd Barnes, 25, were found whole, wrapped in burlap about 1/10 of a mile apart from each other on the beach. By spring 2011, the number of bodies has climbed to 10, 8 women as well as an unidentified man and a toddler. Friday's reported arrest came after the Suffolk new police commissioner created a special Gilgo Beach homicide task force in February last year. And the new commissioner is, of course, Rodney Harrison, a former NYPD chief of department and chief of detectives. This case included the help from the state police, local sheriffs, the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, as well as the FBI. I believe this case is solvable, and identifying the person or person responsible for these murders is a top priority, Commissioner Rodney Harrison, the NYPD's former chief of department, said at the time. So, guys, again, if you're just tuning in right now, breaking news in the Gilgo Beach, or as it's been referred to, the Long Island serial killer case. An arrest has been made at 0600 hours. We do not know yet. This is all unfolding now. We do not know yet the name or anything for that matter, the sex of this person. This is continuously unfolding. We're just preliminarily, again, that word, preliminarily reporting it to you right now as this case breaks wide open. Mickey Mantle, thank you so much for the 20-pound super chat. Very much appreciated. Police off the cuff, the best. Well, thank you, Mickey Mantle. Always good to have the support. Folks, I want to point something out. Just the other day, I believe it was 2 days ago, and I'm going to play it. They found some remains, some human remains along Southern Parkway. Could this be related? Could this be related to this case? That this could have been, and I have no inside information. This case could have been broken wide open through the recovery of these remains.
At approximately 7:15 this morning, an individual traveling eastbound on the Southern State Parkway got off the off-ramp to the Robert Moses State Parkway southbound and pulled over onto the shoulder of the road when something in the wood line caught his eye. Upon closer look, the individual believed it to be human skeletal remains and called 911. State police troopers, along with investigators from the Bureau of Criminal Investigation and members from the Forensic Identification Unit, responded to investigate and determined it to in fact be human skeletal remains. This is currently an ongoing investigation at its onset, and it is too early to tell the identity of the human remains or the involvement of any type of criminality. Further examination of the remains will be conducted by the Suffolk County Medical Examiner's Office. Any further updates regarding this investigation, to include the gender, will be posted on the State Police Newsroom website. Thank you very much.
So, folks, was that related? Or could that have been the big break that they needed in this case? That the finding of these human remains along Southern Parkway, was that the lead that they needed? Is that the lead that connected to this perpetrator or this suspect, let's call him a suspect, in Massapequa? Again, this is unfolding as we speak. I wanted to get this out there to the police off the cuff community. It's too preliminary to call anything. They mentioned that Rodney Harrison, a former NYPD chief of department and chief of detectives, in February of this year, started a task force in regards to this case. NYPD love task force, and he brought it out to Suffolk County. Was that a catalyst in helping to solve this case? As anyone knows that's worked these big cases, they are tremendously complicated. With the world of YouTube content creators, of course, this case had so many conspiracy theories pointing at so many people that could be the suspect. Now, potentially, we'll have the truth. Were all these bodies, were all these cases connected? We'll hopefully find that also. Not everyone was convinced that all the cases were connected. Some were. You got to remember that some of the cases were 13 years old. DNA and the decomposition of the bodies didn't allow for the great processing you would have in a case that was timely and that it was responded to, when they say within hours or 24 hours. These bodies were greatly decomposed. I want to play a little of Rodney Harrison, former NYPD chief of department, chief of detectives, in establishing a task force in regards to the Long Island serial killer case.
Suffolk County's top cop, Rodney Harrison, announced the first of its kind Gilgo Beach homicide investigation task force on Tuesday afternoon.
I'm very confident it's going to help us identify a suspect going into the near future.
The multi-agency panel includes investigators from federal, state, and local levels. Together, they'll focus on figuring out the person or people responsible for the murders of nearly a dozen victims, many of whom were sex workers, whose remains were found along Ocean Parkway more than a decade ago. With a fresh set of eyes, the new team will also look at years-old evidence and use scientific techniques to uncover the names of the remaining unidentified victims.
Having all of these partners are going to help us utilize technology, utilize sciences, cultivate witnesses, cast a broader net out to as many people as possible that could possibly assist.
Back in December, when Harrison was just weeks into his new role as police commissioner, he pledged to make the case a priority.
Using the appropriate sciences that we might not have used in the past, I think is going to help out with the investigation a whole lot. Going down the road.
Harrison, who believes the case is solvable, says he's open to releasing the 911 call from Shannon Gilbert, the escort who went missing in 2010, as long as it doesn't hinder with the investigation. Gilbert's disappearance is what ultimately led to the discovery of several remains in the area, and a lot of questions have been raised in the past about the Suffolk County Police Department and how they handled the case. Attorney John Ray, who represents the Gilbert estate, calls the formation of the task force a good development.
He's opening the door to re-examining the entire case or cases.
While the Nassau County Police Department isn't directly represented on the task force, members of the department will continue to assist in the overall investigation. Jody Goldberg, Fox 5 News. Suffolk County's top.
So, folks, that is in February of this year, Rodney Harrison, former NYPD chief of department, former NYPD chief of detectives, who's now the Suffolk County police commissioner, he authorized a task force of federal, state, Suffolk County, Nassau County police to be put together. Put all your heads together, and let's start right over. Let's start over from the beginning. Let's dissect all the evidence we have. Let's dissect all the information we have. And he also mentioned And again, it's too preliminary for conjecture, but he mentioned science. So what that means to me in this, of course, is investigative genetic genealogy. Did they potentially use that? Was that one part of potentially what gave them the lead to solve this case? Investigative genetic genealogy. We don't know. We don't know for sure what the lead. What was this? What was this? The lead that gave them probable cause. We know right now that they have someone in custody, that they did make an arrest. Again, everything else right now is preliminary. Uh, there's no point in conjecturing right now because the information will be coming out when the police are ready to release it.
We have some breaking news. CBS News has confirmed police have a suspect in custody linked to New York's 2010 infamous Gilgo Beach murders. Authorities were reportedly on the scene earlier today at First Avenue and Massapequa Park on December 11th, 2010. The first of what ended up being a total of 10 bodies was found. So we're going to have more information as we get it on this developing story.
So, folks, that's what we're hearing right now. I'm sorry, let me pull this off the screen. There's been a lot of conjecture in this case. Of course, it's been open for so long that there's been people have totally made documentaries. I don't know how many documentaries were made on this case, pointing at different people as the potential suspects. However, again, these cases are very, very complex. And to oversimplify them by saying, oh, so-and-so did it, or I think this person did it, or they're not connected, or they are connected. Usually what you want when you have something that is connected is you want the science to tell you that, not rumors, not conjecture. You want the science to tell you of what actually occurred. And right now, they haven't released what led them to this arrest. There was a lot of politics in this case also because many of these victims were sex workers. So, of course, people pointed fingers at the police that, oh, they're not working as hard because they're sex workers and the police don't care because some of these women were prostitutes. I think that is so far from the truth. The police work just as hard when it's a sex worker or when it's anyone else. So that was thrown out there. So according to a source on the internet, a suspect that has been arrested on suspicion of being the infamous Gilgo Beach serial killer responsible for the murders of at least 10 women on Long Island. Police sources told News 12 that an individual had been taken into custody in connection with the unsolved murders which terrorized the community in Suffolk County for more than a decade. The identity of the suspect is currently unknown. It's not clear what led to the sudden breakthrough in the case over a decade after bodies began being dumped along remote beaches. The Gilgo Beach murders have long stumped law enforcement officials in Suffolk County who believed it could be the work of one or more serial killers who targeted sex workers and dumped their bodies along the remote beaches on Ocean Parkway. The case began in May 2010 when Shannon Gilbert, a 24-year-old sex worker, vanished after leaving a client's house on foot near Gilgo Beach. That case was baffling because they had electronic evidence. They had cell phone calls. They had the home that she had left. They had the driver who drove her to the scene. Yet none of that information, none of that evidence proved to be the evidence that could point to the potential perpetrator in this case. So that seemed to be the most promising in solving this case. Again, it didn't. And the frustration of the public and the police remains. Shannon Gilbert called 911 for help, saying she feared for her life and was never seen alive again. During a search for Miss Gilbert in dense thicket close to the beach, police discovered the remains of another woman. Within a matter of days, the remains of 3 more victims were found close by. Now, this is 2010, so we're saying close to 13 years ago. By spring 2011, the remains of a total of 10 victims had been found, including 8 women, a man, and a toddler. Miss Gilbert's body was found in December 2011. Her cause of death is widely contested, with authorities saying it's not connected to the serial killer or killers, but that she died from accidental drowning as she fled from the client's home. However, an independent autopsy commissioned by her family ruled that she died by strangulation, and her mother believes she was murdered. Like Miss Gilbert, most of the victims targeted were sex workers. So, folks, again, just recapping, a suspect has been taken into custody in regards to the, put it on the screen, the Long Island serial killer. All information right now is preliminary. The Nassau County Police, the Suffolk County Police have not released the name of the suspect. We just know there was a lot of police activity in Massapequa Park, Long Island, near First Avenue. They haven't even officially identified the exact address of the suspect's home. I would imagine there will be search warrants conducted on the suspect. At this point, potentially the arrestee's home. That would follow up. I'm sure they'll be looking at his cell phone, his computer, his home for potential evidence related to these cases. And I had mentioned earlier on that there was remains found a couple of days ago along the Southern Parkway on Long Island of human remains. And I don't have any outright information that's connected, but I think the potentiality that could be the lead that connected them to this person arrested today. And again, I don't have any solid information, but it's too coincidental that human remains were found along the Southern Parkway, in that very vicinity of, I believe it was of Suffolk County, where many of these remains were found. Could this have been the lead that led the police, led the evidence to the police to this person who's arrested right now? Again, all of this information is subject to change. It's preliminary. Vet Girl, thank you. I thought they released the 911 call before. Not sure. Please and thank you. Recently, I think Rodney Harrison, who was the new police commissioner of Suffolk County, I mentioned he came from the NYPD. Vet Girl, by the way, thank you so much for the 1999 super sticker. He started a task force. He was in favor of releasing Shannon Gilbert's 911 call. I believe it was released. There was other information released a couple of years ago when Suffolk County had a police commissioner. I don't have her name at the tip of my tongue. She was a former FBI agent and an attorney. They released photos of a belt that was removed from one of the victims. And they thought that potentially could shake up someone's memory in the public. And they released that. So sometimes in these cases, you really do need to use the public as your ally. You can't withhold information all the time because the public and the press, we say it all the time on this show, the press can be your best friend and your worst enemy. But in a case like this, you got to use the press as your ally. There was no shortage of information. There was no shortage of people covering this case on YouTube channels. Deborah Barron, yes, one of the first victim's phone pinged from Massapequa. Deborah Barron, you're so correct. And there's many people, believe it or not, content creators. I think there's someone on YouTube who actually has a channel called the Long Island Serial Killer Channel, probably knows more information than almost the police on this case. Has been covering this for so long. I spoke to the great Barbara Butcher early on, a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago on this case. And Barbara Butcher, the author of What the Dead Know, and a former chief of staff of the New York City office of the chief medical examiner, she longed to work on this case. She wanted so badly. She offered her services to the Suffolk County Police, and she told them who she was, and they turned it down. They didn't feel that they needed her help, but she weighed in on this case, and she reiterated about how difficult a case and how complex, because many times the people on social media, that girl, the remains that they recovered along the Southern Parkway the other day apparently have not been identified as of yet, as far as I know. You can check the New York State Police website, and they may have an update on that as to the sex and potentially the identity. Look, if they're not going to identify the potential remains to the public until they've been able to identify a next of kin, no one wants to find out that a loved one remains were found through the press. They want to have the proper notification process. Vet girl, I think over 10 bodies potentially, or the remains, have been recovered in this case. If the remains found along the Southern Parkway were in fact connected to this, that would, of course, would increase this by at least one. Brad, good morning, Bill. I just asked Bill about this case. Brad, you certainly did. You certainly did. But this case is a full-time job, and I wasn't prepared to speak about it. I have covered it in the past, but there is so much to this case, and I didn't want to just open up a Pandora's box and say, "Oh yes, I know all about this case." And I think that you really need to be somewhat of an expert on this case to talk about it. There's a voluminous amount of information. After all, it goes back to 2010. There is evidence on the remains of the bodies, where they were recovered, how they were recovered, where once they identified the remains of the bodies, they did a deep dive into where the people were before they were recovered, what their lives were like before. That's how they identified at least 4 of these remains as sex workers. And that became problematic with many people, as people felt that this was not. Deborah Barron, 10 remains. And again, that could increase if they connect the recent remains found along the Southern Parkway to this case. Again, folks, this is preliminary. There's a great deal of information on this case. However, we, Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories, and I'm sure many other podcasts will be covering this case as the information comes out, the news breaks. I think everyone is fascinated with this case and have been for 12 or 13 years. And if this turns out to be the guy, it's tremendous news. It's tremendous news. But we all have to recognize the fact that this is preliminary information. The police will always say it's subject to change. So as you notice, the police haven't had a press conference yet. I believe sometime this afternoon, this evening, perhaps tomorrow, once the police gather all their information, as the expression I normally hate, get all their ducks in a row, they'll come out and they'll hold a press conference and they'll report their findings to the public. Folks, that's about all I have right now. I wanted to get out on this case right away. We'll probably be doing another show this afternoon or this evening once more information comes out on this case. Again, an arrest has been made reportedly in the Long Island serial killer case, according to a person close to the investigation, which is being reported by News 12, that is being targeted for the cases specifically of the 4 sex workers out of the 10 bodies that were recovered. Folks, I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff. Thank you so much for tuning in. As I said, we'll be picking up on this case later today or later this evening. Good news, an arrest in the Long Island serial killer case. More information to come later on today. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you real soon.
One episode just ain't enough.